Begin now. Welcome one and all to the Candidates Forum for the Manitowoc Public School District Board. First, I would like to thank Justin Nichols, Mayor, and his assistant, Stacy Grohl, our IT person, Amanda Barenbrook, and our custodian, because she's helped set up the chairs and tables and everything, Cheryl Schwartz, and for making this program possible. I'm Catherine Cole. I'm the co-president of the League of Women Voters of Manitowoc County. And I want to introduce our timer, Julie Grindy here, and she's going to keep everybody on board because there's a lot of you, and I know many of you have some questions, and these signs are going to be important. Okay, first of all, I have some statements that I have to make. The League of Women Voters of Manitowoc County is a nonpartisan organization that does not endorse one party or one candidate over another. Our mission is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation of citizens in government. League membership is open to all citizens, male and female of voting age. I need to talk about the format for this evening. During this time, we ask that you turn off your cell phones and pagers. Restrooms are outside and down the hall. And all right, the format for the evening. All right, each candidate will have an opportunity to introduce themselves by answering the first question from the league. They will have a minute and a half to answer. Julie will show the signs when it is halfway through and when to stop. All right. After that, this will be open to the public to come up here. You are to give your name and ask one 30-second question. The question will be directed to all candidates. The candidates will have 1 minute to respond. Unfortunately, those watching on that are streams will not have that opportunity. After the last question, the candidates will have an opportunity for a closing statement, and that too will be a minute and a half. I'm expecting everyone to obey these comments and these rules that we have set forward. There's a lot of you, and I know you want this to get started. So with that, I'm going to ask the first question, and Johnston is going to start first. The first question is, what work, community, and life experiences do you bring to the position of school board member? And how will these experiences benefit the students of the Manitowoc Public School District community? You will have 90 seconds to respond, or a minute and a half.
First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this candidate forum. My name is Lisa Johnston, and I am an incumbent running for re-election to the school board. I've been a member on the board for the last 4 years. Prior to this, I did volunteer work for the MPSD while my son was attending K-12 in the MPSD. He's a graduate from Lincoln, class of 2017. I'm also an alumni of Lincoln and proud to be serving on the school board. Thank you.
All right, next, Matt Phipps, the same question.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. I know we're taking time out of your schedule to be here. Your children are probably at home, or your grandchildren, and I'd like to say thank you for being here. It means a lot to me that you're spending the time tonight to speak with us and ask us questions. A little bit about myself. I got to go to school here, graduate from Lincoln High School. I'm very proud of this community. I want to serve on the school board to give back to a community that served me, that's helped me, my teachers, my administrators, even my custodians. They were the ones that were there for me when I needed help, the voice that I needed to have the constant struggles that I got through as a young man. And I want to serve our community in that manner. And that's why I'm here tonight. So thank you.
Meredith?
Good evening. Thank you for having us. This is a wonderful event that I'm glad to see reinstated. I'm Meredith Sauer, and I believe in public education, which is why I'm running for school board. Public education to me is the great equalizer, and it sets everyone on foundation that is solid to go out into their adult life. I have spent the majority of my adult career in education, serving as a teacher and now currently as an administrator. I hold various degrees in education and I'm currently working on my doctorate in educational leadership. I have a very big passion for learning and for education. I do journey in this life with my family, who I'm proud to say my 2 children, one of which is a graduate of Lincoln High School and one who is soon to be a freshman next year, as well as my husband and my partner in crime. I currently serve on the school board and chair the curriculum committee, as well as serve on the personnel committee, and have done a variety of movements over the past 3 years to propel our district forward. And I'm excited to answer some questions today so you all can get to know us a little bit better.
Thank you. Matt Spalding?
Hi, my name is, oh, that's good. My name is Matthew Spalding, and I'd like to thank you for having this platform. I really appreciate it, and for everybody showing up. I have a daughter who's 12 years old and goes to Washington, and that is my sole purpose is for children. I care about all the kids that go to school in the Manitowoc Public School District, and I want to see positive change. I want to see positive change in a direction that's going to benefit them now and for the long run, because these are eventually going to be the children that are on city council or school boards and things like that. So it's very important to me in that manner. My past experience, I definitely have dealt a lot with children. I also have a law enforcement background, and one of the biggest problems we have is discipline. And I feel like I'm going to bring a new perspective on how to deal with certain things and work together well with the board. Thank you.
Okay, Tony?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Vlastelica. I was born and raised in Chicagoland by Croatian immigrants, so I think I have some unique life perspective, just being first-generation American. I've lived here in Manitowoc since 2010. I'm a Christian. I have 4 children, and I'm a husband. I'm running for school board because I love and care about our community. Manitowoc Public School District has been in a steady decline since 2015. In that time period, we've seen our overall accountability scores drop from 32% to the bottom 8% in the state. I'm really concerned about what the future of our community looks like if we don't intervene. Relevant background and experience: I'm a business owner. I've been following the school board closely since last August, and I believe a lot of our issues stem from a lack of accountability with the board and the superintendent. I have a very strong background in developing accountability structures and clear and measurable targets and leading my team to execute on those. I feel that if I'm elected to the school board, I can help our community and schools see meaningful change in our first year. Thank you for coming tonight, and I look forward to your questions.
Okay. No. All right, thank you. Now it's time for the audience. So who's going to be the first one? You can come up here and you can come up here. You've got to state your name and ask your question. It's to be 30 seconds long.
Hello, my name is Teresa Fessler. My question is, at a recent school board meeting,
Into the mic.
okay, at a recent school board meeting, we had the statement made that this is our meeting before going into closed session and then going to virtual meetings following that. Who do you think the school board represents?
Matt, you're first.
Teresa, thank you for your question. The school board represents the community, and if I get elected to this board, I'm going to serve the community. The voice of the people is what's important to me. The children's rights, the parents' rights. I'm holding accountable by the votes that you give for me. And you can get me out of office if I get elected whenever you'd like. I'm here to serve you. And if I do something wrong, because I make mistakes every single day, please tell me. I'm the first one to admit that I work very hard at what I do, but I do make mistakes. So thank you.
Okay, Meredith?
Sure. I appreciate that question. None of us up here actually made that statement, just to be very clear. I would say we were moving into closed session. Oh, this could get interesting. We were moving into closed session, I believe, at the time, and therefore that is closed to the community. We have moved to virtual in the past, particularly at our last regular evening meeting. There's a variety of reasons, one of which is that it's very difficult to conduct business when there's a lot of disruption. I think Matt is right. There is the need for the community and there is the right for the community to have access. But when public input is over, it is now the time for the board to act, and that is all televised and live streamed. And there is availability to be able to be an active participant outside of that public input.
Okay, Matt?
Thank you for that question, Teresa. Just like any elected position, the board is held accountable by the people, and we are here for you. So I was there at that meeting, and yeah, it was upsetting. I understand that there's rules and ways that they need to do things, but I think that's kind of what we want to bring. At least for myself, I'd like to bring some sort of change to open up some sort of a avenue of communication for the people, so they don't need to come there pointlessly every month and say the same thing without anybody ever getting back to them. It's like we're speaking to a brick wall, and I want to change that.
All right, Tony?
Yeah, so as far as who the school board represents, I think it's pretty clear. Parents, voters, students. I too was disappointed at the last meeting going virtual. I could promise you if I get elected that I will embrace and welcome any public input at any time, and I will not put up obstacles for you guys to provide it. Thank you.
Okay, Lisa, it's your turn.
I feel we are elected officials accountable to the public, but I do want to make it clear that we have always allowed public input, whether it was in person or whether it was via phone or whether it was emails. We had always accepted public input.
Quiet, please. Lisa, do you have anything more?
No.
Okay. All right, next question.
My name is Don Zimmer. I live in the city of Manitowoc. Several weeks ago,
30 seconds.
a woman I know was a special ed teacher was severely beaten by an enraged and out of control student. Now, I know there's a committee put together to address the issue of student discipline, but I'd like to know from each of you what you think we need to do to bring good order and discipline back to our schools. Thank you.
Meredith, you're first.
So I think there's a variety of strategies that need to be used, to be real honest. The first and probably primary strategy is to be able to build relationships with our students. It's not an us-them relationship, it's a we relationship. And so we need to get to know our students. We need to know where they're coming from. We need to know their pains and their struggles in order to identify with them and help them move forward in a more positive manner. Now, in relationship to what else is going on, yes, there has been a committee that's been formed. There's also been several trainings in de-escalation strategies district-wide, and those trainings are continuing, and we are seeking out assistance to provide a system-wide strategy and consistency throughout the district.
Okay, thank you. Matt.
The discipline issue is huge, and that was a tragic event. One of the things that I believe that we need to do is make sure that the teachers are able to control their classrooms. I can't tell you how many times I've spoken with a teacher that says she's afraid to yell at a student, or she's afraid to discipline in a manner fitting in the classroom without fear of losing her job. That should never be a case. It wasn't a case when I went to school and the teachers had order. But there are also a lot of other things like mentorship programs and things like that that can be done as well. But we need to work together. We need to work together as the board with the administration and with the SROs. Those liaison officers are going to be a good resource for us And there's just so much to go over, and having a minute is quite a bit of a crunch, but that's where I'd like to start.
Tony?
Thank you. Yeah, so I had some ideas on my website about this. All our teachers and students deserve a safe environment to teach and learn. One of the ideas I really liked, there's a program that these guys in Louisiana did called Dads on Duty, and I'd like to explore that further for our district. Basically, it was a bunch of dads and grandpas that started showing up in the schools early in the morning, and they would serve as a deterrent to the children, but they would also tell dad jokes, so it was upbeat and friendly. In a school that had a lot of issues with violence, saw that stop almost immediately. So I think that's worth exploring. I also like the idea of outreach programs and mentorship programs, particularly with repeat offenders. I feel that there might be an opportunity for our community leaders and our church leaders to step up and help address issues in our community that may be, deeper than what we're seeing at school. So I would certainly advocate to explore programs like that. I'd also like to see a task force of teachers, parents, and administrators to come up with ideas. I'm open to any ideas, but obviously we have to do something. Thank you.
Lisa?
Recently, the MPSD partnered with the Crisis Intervention Institute. Staff members attended training sessions to learn intervention techniques for dealing with crisis behaviors. The school board also took the additional step of creating a behavioral ad hoc group, which includes parents, retired teachers, to make recommendations how to assist students and teachers when dealing with behavioral issues in schools. I feel there is a direct correlation between low test scores and behavioral mental health issues. We won't improve standardized tests unless we solve the mental health crisis. School districts need sustainable funding to hire the additional staff in the areas of school psychologists, school counselors, and mental health professionals. The state of Wisconsin needs to fairly and adequately fund public schools so we have more resources available when addressing our behavioral and mental health issues. Thank you.
Matt?
Thank you, Don, for your question. Ultimately, I have a little bit more of a common sense approach to behavior issues. Our community is what we need. We need our community involved. We need to have oversight. I remember, if you got in trouble at school, your parents were called, and then you had a conversation with them, and then the parents had a conversation with the child that had an issue. In some homes, we can do that. Everybody's unique. Everybody has their own individualism and their own problems and successes. But ultimately, community oversight needs to be intricately involved. Also, the relationship between the teacher, the administrator, and the parent and the student needs to grow. I remember when I had a problem at all, I could talk to my administrator, and that administrator would back me up 100% in the classroom. And we feel that disconnect right now. I don't know why exactly, but we need to work on that relationship. And if we can work on that relationship, we can solve a lot of the behavioral issues. Also, last thing about that is our children need to have things to do. If we get out there and we have actions for them to do, hands-on, get out and go play, get that energy used up so they're not tired or their idle hands will make problems. Thank you.
My name is Dave Nato, the class of 1968, Lincoln High School. Next year, by the way, is the 100th year of Lincoln High School, 1923 to 2023. So a very appropriate time to be talking about education right now. My question to the board and to the guys that want to be on the board is this. Tony, you mentioned the fact that the city of Manitowoc School District is in the bottom 8% of the 422 school districts in the state of Wisconsin. Do each of you agree with that number, first of all, and what will you do to fix it?
Okay, we begin with Matt Spalding.
I do agree with that, Dave. Thank you for the question. It's just math, guys. I know there's been some controversy over it, but it's literally just math. I think it's appropriate that we look at other schools that are doing better than us and see what they're going to do. And I think it's appropriate that we look at ourselves and reflect in the mirror that we're not doing so hot. So along with holding accountability to the superintendent and giving those teachers the control of their classrooms, helping with the discipline. There's all sorts of areas that we can do, but I believe it's a multi-pronged answer to the subject. And when you get to discipline and control, and the teachers have control of their classrooms, there's more opportunity for learning. That in turn will raise your scores. Everything is going to start falling into place, in my opinion. But definitely, I agree with that. It's just math.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, I would agree with that. When you look at the overall accountability scores put out by the DPI, if you download the data and put it in an Excel spreadsheet and sort them from highest score to lowest score, our score is number 387 out of 420, which is the bottom 8%. So there's no refuting that. Some might say that we shouldn't be looking at that and there's other variables, but that's just the data when you rank it. And I think we should be looking at things like that. Things that I would do to address this. First thing, I would establish the appropriate accountability structure. I would work closely with my peers on the board and the superintendent to develop clear and measurable targets that we would be shooting for. And then I would also support the superintendent and my peers on the board in developing the plan to get there. That heavy lifting on that would be done by the superintendent, but as a board, we would be there to guide that process and ensure that it's fully transparent to the public. Thank you.
Lisa?
The bottom 8% is fuzzy math. That number does not exist because the DPI does not have a metric for rating school districts. We contacted the DPI. They confirmed to us multiple times that the assessment testing is not to be used for ranking school districts. So that metric of 8% does not exist. We also have to look at the demographics of different school districts and why we don't rate school districts. We have a 16% students with disabilities, a 47% students with disadvantaged economically, and we have 8% of our students that are English learners. You cannot compare that to other school districts and come up with a ranking like Tony is attempting to come up with. So it's fuzzy math.
Okay, Matt?
Thank you, Dave, for your question. I do agree that we need to have clear objective goals for our district, and that's how I would solve that we're in the bottom 8% of the state. We need to work on our reading, our writing, and arithmetic scores. If you just break it down, you can look at the scores yourself. You just go to the DPI and you can do the math. The biggest thing is the real world application that I see. Being an employer in this community, I have many times hired a young individual and they do not know how to read a tape measure. And that hurts. I mean, I love this community. I was born here, raised here, and that's one example. Another example would be just being able to, come to work on time, being ready for the day. So ultimately, I know we have a problem. We kind of all know we have a problem, and we need to address it. Thank you.
Meredith?
Sure. So I have to say, none of us up here have data analysis in our background, our work experience, or our education. And so frankly, to say that it's simple math is a fairly immature statement. What it is it's just a lack of understanding. Can I continue, or does this cut into my minute and a half? Thank you. So what we have here are issues where we need to improve reading, writing, and math. It doesn't mean we're in the 8% of the state, because again, DPI has guided us and said that is not a comparison. However, the board, working in conjunction with the schools and the directors and the superintendent, do indeed have goals that are public knowledge that have been accepted by the full board at the December 14th meeting and are accepted every single year. So to say there's no goals, to say we need measurable goals, to say we're in the 8% is false information, and the public needs to be aware of that.
Thank you, Meredith. Matt?
I started out the question, but I
Alright,
can
you started
continue.
it out. Okay, all right, good, good. I just want to be sure I'm covering everybody. All right, next person. And Tony, you'll start first.
All right. My name is Joseph Kerf, and my question is, as a school board member, how would you describe the rights of parents in a child's education? Thank you.
Thanks, Joseph. As a school board member, I believe the parents should have a lot of rights when it comes to their child's education. So, looking at what's happened here the last couple of years, I know mandatory masking was a big issue in our district. And personally, I feel I have no problem with people if they want to wear masks. I'm cool with that. But I think there were a lot of people that didn't want to wear them. And there were a lot of parents and a lot of kids that didn't want to wear them. And I would strongly advocate for their rights to decide what's best for them. I would do the same thing with any vaccine mandates or anything like that. And that's all I have to say on that topic. Thank you.
Okay, Lisa.
I agree that parents do have rights, but as a public school, we have to follow laws that are set down by the state for us to follow, unlike private schools that don't have to follow the same laws that public schools do. So we are working under laws that guide our decisions as a board.
Okay, Matt.
Thank you for your question, Joseph. Ultimately, I believe parents have the utmost responsibility and rights for their children's decisions till they're 18 years old. I think that the parent is the only thing that should be making decisions for children's life decisions or anything until they're adult. Period. There's a place for schools and there's a place for parenting, and I believe parents should be in charge of all decisions for their children. Thank you.
Meredith.
The very foundation of public education is that the entire public has a right to the education. It's not segmented by what one parent thinks or another parent thinks, but collectively as what a community, a state, and quite frankly, a nation thinks are important aspects of education. We all agree that reading and writing and math and history and science are all vital parts to a public education. But if one parent says, I don't think reading's important, then what do we do as public educators? Do we say we don't teach reading anymore? So the public needs to understand that the public is in charge of the education, which is why we use the Department of Public Instruction's curriculum, which is vetted by parents and teachers who make up the public.
Okay, Matt.
As a parent, and I am a parent of a child in middle school here, we have the ultimate authority. And that's what I believe. No parents are asking to break any laws. I do understand that we govern. The school board has to follow laws, but there is no parents asking anybody to break laws. And I don't believe I've ever heard a parent say that reading is not important. But when it comes to my child, or when it comes to your child, you are the ultimate authority, which also means accountability as well lands in your lap. I believe as a school board member, we need to control what we can control, and that's in the classroom. I'm not for big government. I believe that you should stay out of my pocket and stay out of my home. And that's how I go with it. But it's definitely the parents' ultimate all right.
Okay, next question.
This name? Question? Hi, my name is Jason Johnston, local business owner. Thank you. I wanted to say first to all the members that actually showed up tonight. With the DPI academic performance measures of MPSD efficacy from 2014 and 15 to 2020 and 21, stating the non-fuzzy mathematics of students with below basic performance in mathematics and English language arts, increasing by 68 and 92% respectively, compared to state numbers of 18 and 24% respectively. What do you plan to do to turn this performance around?
Lisa?
Thank you.
Lisa, you're first.
We have been told by certain members of the public that we had never set any academic goals. We have set academic goals. They are called SMART goals, and they were presented to us December 14th of 2021. And we do that every year. And we review those, we look at those, the board approves those, and we keep progress. We see what the progress has been. We discuss these things at a lot of board meetings. But for the last 9 months, to be honest, there have been outbursts, disruptions. We have not been able to carry on board business. If people could hear what we were discussing, you would know that we are setting goals, meeting targets, things like that. So I just want to say that we do have it. It is posted on the MPSD website. It can be viewed, and it is there. So thank you.
Okay, Matt.
Thank you, Jason, for your question. Ultimately, I would like to work on the relationship between the board and the schools. When I was a teacher, the relationship was like, well, the board is like in this off distant land that they're going to be trying to take care of their stuff. And then the relationship of the students to that board are quite far apart. So I would like to work on the relationship of clear goals and have those be brought to the schools and understanding that we are working together as a community to solve our deficits that we are having in the three core groups that I think that we should be focusing on. So ultimately, it's the communication between the board and the administrators and the students and the teachers. That's what I want to work on. Thank you.
Meredith?
Yeah. So goals seem to be a big word, right? And we have established, we've discussed them, we've approved them. What many of you may not realize if you don't have kids in our system is that there are goals posted for children in classrooms that say, this is the goal we're going to meet. And how are we going to get there? And then guess what? Those goals are measured at the end of the day. And here's what's going on. In Franklin and in Jefferson elementary schools, those goals were set. And from September, when they took a baseline test, to December, when they had a follow-up test, those scores went high. These kids are learning at high levels. Whether folks want to believe there's goals and they're being measured and met is another story. But the truth is really, they're learning at high levels.
Matt Spalding?
Yes, look, it's progressively gotten worse as far as our goals, and the DPI that we like to mention is showing that. The graphs are showing it. It's quite easy. And if there are goals that are written up there and you're not seeing them, it's because we are not communicating them to you, or you don't have access to get them, or whatever it may be. But that's the line of communication that is going to help us obviously build a relationship with you as the public and establish better goals, getting your input. But yes, definitely we need to improve on that. And I do also believe that discipline, I believe they had mentioned it as well too, discipline is going to play a big part in that. If we can get control of the classrooms and we can give these teachers what they need, scores are going to improve. And that's just the way it's got to be.
All right, Tony?
Yeah, so I think it really just comes down to prioritizing it at the board level. I've heard a few comments regarding, goals that have been there. And, I guess my question is, why are they so hard to find? I've looked through the website and I haven't been able to find it. I asked sitting board members about it. I never got a response. So if that's true, that's great. And I'm glad to hear that things are moving in the right direction. But I guess, I think we should prioritize transparency on that to the public more than we are right now. I'm concerned when I hear that 42% of our students that tested in math are testing below basic proficiency, and 32% are testing below basic proficiency in English. So while some of these stories sound great. If we're making progress, I'm glad for that. I'm just curious, why aren't we seeing that reflected in the scores, in the report cards that come out? So I think we should prioritize this moving forward.
Okay, next question.
My name is Todd Cheney. I'm a retired Director of Public Safety and a former school board president. And I have this question. The school board approved $42,000 to train 30 administrators or staff members in things like white, racial discomfort, and equity coaching. Going forward, as a member of the school board, would you approve the use of these tax dollars for equity training, unconscious bias training, systemic race training without the input of parents and the community, and why?
Okay, Matt, you're first.
Thank you, Todd, for your question. Ultimately, no, for your easy answer. But the biggest thing that I don't want to see is I don't want us to be identified by groups. I don't think that group identity by race is how we should be judged. I believe that our character should be how we judge each other. That's what I was taught. And frankly, I believe that's what the community believes. So I don't want any discourse to think that I think anything different. I love everybody for who they are and what they want to represent as an individual, but that is not and should not be in our schools. And when I see our superintendent group by ethnicity, I see some flags in my mind. I should never be dividing anybody by their race. It should be by their character. That's what I believe. Thank you.
Meredith?
Yeah, so the district has recognized that we need to do some introspection. We need to look at our systems and the way we operate business in regard to all demographics, not just race. And so, yes, Dayroot was hired as a company to come in and do some of that self-introspection. We did terminate that contract because we felt it wasn't a good fit for our district. The mission of Dayroot was different than the mission of what we needed at the time. I value diversity. I do see color, and I value color, and I value culture, and I value the uniqueness that every child walks into our doors with, because I think that's what makes us us.
Okay, Matt Spalding?
No, I would not support that. Basically, I'd like to see them teaching these children what they have in common, not why they're different. That's just my own opinion, and that's what I believe. But spending $42,000 on something that hasn't been approved is irresponsible. How many times have you heard a teacher say that they spend their own money and go to Walmart and picking up items that other people cannot afford? This is money we're dishing out in areas we don't need to dish out. I'd put it in a big pot and let the teachers pull from it or something. I don't care what it is. They could have spent it on many other things other than a Dayroot contract that I absolutely would have voted against.
Okay, tell me.
No, I would not support spending money on programs like that. I think we should, as a board and as a community, we should move away from these identity-based approach models. These are models that look at individuals through the lens of superficial characteristics, things like skin color, gender, sexuality, things like this. I think we should really focus on people as individuals. And I would advocate strongly for a principles-based approach in our thinking. This is more in line with Martin Luther King's traditional ideals of colorblindness. Call me old-fashioned, but I grew up listening to Martin Luther King, and I believed what he said. I think we should judge people based on their character, nothing else, and treat them accordingly.
Lisa?
We had a mandate from the DPI to work on our equity problems in our community. So the DPI actually had sent us a letter stating that we were really had an equity issue problem in this community. So it's not only the school district, it's a community as a whole. Equity has been confused with critical race theory, which I want to point out right now, we are not teaching critical race theory in our school district. The definition of equity is meeting the needs of students, families, and faculties wherever they are at, and providing safe spaces to accommodate them. The DeGroot contract was ended in June of 2021.
Okay, next question.
Hi, my name is Darian Kutarabik. I am going to expand on that just a little bit. As someone who works in our community with vulnerable children and have for the last 10 years, children and families, I do know that there are gaps. There are gaps in our community that we are not filling, because I can see on a day-to-day basis with the children that I work with that, like Tony just said, with their individuality, it's those different parts of their life that make them who they are. And it prevents them.
All right, what was your question?
My question is, what do you know about our current community social issues that impact our children in that way?
Okay, and we're going to start with Meredith.
Yeah, that's a great question, Darian. And I think in this community, we often have turned a blind eye to a lot of individuals in this community. We have, within our school community, 47% of our population who are considered economically disadvantaged. So what does that mean? That means that the children in that demographic can apply for free and reduced meals, which means oftentimes they're coming to school hungry. We have individuals who have been targets of racism in this community. And I'm not saying 20 years ago, I'm saying a year ago. Blatant racism. We have issues in this community between the haves and the have-nots. We have issues of transportation. Did you know it takes an hour to get across town? And if you have 3 children that you're lugging over to Walmart for your groceries and then lugging them back home on the bus, that's a 4-hour adventure. We do have these issues in our communities and in our schools.
Okay, Matt Spalding.
Thank you for that question. The economic diversity, or the challenged, I guess is the way she put it, they could have definitely benefited from that $42,000. That's exactly what I was saying. There's children that can't afford things in class. There's children that, you know, their parents can't afford it. And the teachers end up paying for that out of their own pocket. We could have definitely found a different way to spend that money. And about them going to the grocery store and stuff, I'm running for the school board. I got to stick to what I can control, and I cannot control your home life. And that's just basically it. I'd love to help out any way we can. And by saving some of that money spent on these frivolous things without approval from the public, we could probably do that. But we really need to stick to what we can control.
Tony.
I think as a school board, we should advocate for programs that help people in our community that are hurting. And that applies for anyone, economically disadvantaged or otherwise. I grew up in an economically disadvantaged household. I was raised by a single mom, and I know what that's like. It's not easy. So I would certainly advocate for any programs geared towards outreach, and I would love to see more community engagement and involvement with that.
All right, Lisa.
The MPSD serves 4,760 students with a population of 7% for whom English is not their primary language, and over 16% of our students have disabilities. An additional 47% of our students are considered economically disadvantaged. While other districts have these same variables or variations of them, most of those districts have higher funding than the MPSD. So we are a very challenged district, not only with these percentages that I gave you, but also what we receive from the state for funding.
All right, Matt.
Speaking from experience, I was a poor child in this district. I don't make that as an excuse. I don't make that as an excuse of why I didn't get what I wanted in life. I get what I want in life because I work hard. And my teachers taught me that here. My administrators taught me that here. I had an administrator that said, Matt, if you ever miss the bus, call me and I will pick you up. That's what we need. That's how we build a community. We got to use cultural relativity. I had many different cultures at school, and that's what I loved about this district. We were all friends. We all tried to get along. Yes, there's problems, but if you look past the superficial things that divide us, that tear us down, that's how you build a community. That's what I'll bring to the board. Take responsibility, become a mentor. Love one another. That's how you solve these issues. Be a mentor. Do something about it. That's what I'm trying to do right now. Thank you.
Okay, next question.
My name is Ryan Phipps. I grew up in this community, and my question is, as I grew up pretty poor myself and pretty physical guy, and the school and the school district gave me a lot of opportunities to harness my skills with the technical education, different hands-on programs that I cherish to this very day. So my question is, since we eliminated a lot of the technical education programs, how can we bring some of those back and improve the lives of individuals that may not be college bound, that may not have that opportunity? Thank you very much.
Matt Spalding, you're next. The question is to you.
Okay.
Start.
I'm actually in the trades as far as that, and I'm going to school in the apprenticeship program for LTC. So that's actually very important to me. We have programs here at MPSD that handles that, and I do believe that it has been in a decline ever since I've even started working locally here. You can see that the youth apprentice numbers have been dropping. I do believe that it's important, and we should focus on that. Not everybody can afford to go to college, and not everybody's going to have those scores. So it's important for us to expand on that and keep the youth apprentice programs going and focus on that. It's one of the areas that I think will help us, definitely.
Tony?
Yeah, I agree with Matthew. I think that, there's definitely a shortage of skilled labor out there. I see this just in my own life experience working with contractors in my business, and just realizing the reality that, not every student is cut out for four-year college, right? And you can make a really good living in the trades. So I would love to see our youth apprenticeship program. I've heard it's good. I'd like to see more of an emphasis on the trades to give students opportunities to pursue viable career paths once they get out of high school.
Lisa?
I would encourage you to look at the DPI report card from 2021. We are above the state average for college and career readiness in post-secondary preparation. And I will define that. We have advanced courses. The district is at 28%. The state average is 19%. So we are way above average on that. Dual enrollment. What that is when a high school student will take classes at either LTC or at UW Green Bay, and they will get credits for college. Our district average is 29%. The state average is 17%. So we are way above average in that as well. I will also comment on work-based learning, which is when a student will go into the workforce, have a job, possibly do it during school hours. They have that opportunity to do that. Our MPSD.
Excuse me, your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you, Ryan, for your question. Ultimately, I would like to invest in our infrastructure. I mean, we do have quite a outdated system up at Lincoln right now. It hasn't been renovated, I believe, since 1980, mid-83, 84, somewhere around there. But the real problem, I believe, is the relationship between the counselors, actually the lack of a relationship now because everything is online, students give a survey about what they would like to do, and they kind of ask for their career paths, and that relationship is starting to be broken. A counselor used to say, well, Johnny, you should go to this class because this might be more fitted for you. I'm saying that relationship needs to be fostered better, and understand that not just a certain person should go into that field. Everybody should. If you have a young lady that likes woodworking, she should be incentivized, say, hey, go become a woodworker if you like it. Don't get pushed around by saying, hey, you got to go on a college path right away. So I can tell you from experience that happens. But a plumber can make just as much as a lawyer nowadays. So let's kind of do the math here. There is a way to get
Your
ahead.
time is up.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Meredith?
I really appreciate this question, quite honestly, because I work at Lakeshore Technical College, where I see kids from Lincoln High School sitting in our classrooms every day through the Start College Now program. And that's exciting. It's exciting to see kids going into the trades and doing what they're passionate about. I think Matt is semi-right in that, yes, we do deliver now computerized surveys and skills interest, because we no longer do it paper and pencil and take forever to try and compute those results. However, I just sat in a counseling appointment with my son as we planned out his next 4 years at Lincoln, and asking him with his school counselor what he wants to do with his life. And guess what? My kid is going to go take the trades classes at Lincoln, because we have welding, we have auto, we have IT, where they can earn college credits, or they can just take IT classes. And we have CNA and a variety of other things. So the trades are alive and well at Lincoln High School, as well as partnership with Lakeshore Technical College.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Van. I'm a business owner in this town. I am wondering, how does everyone suggest we deal with the anxiety brought on by the schools being shut down? And if they're going to be shut down again, how do we deal with this?
Tony, you're first.
Yeah, so I have a bold idea here. We're not going to shut down our schools again. Thank you.
All right, Lisa?
We mandated the mask mandate because we wanted to keep our schools open. And we did keep our schools open for this entire last school year. So I'm proud of that fact that we were able to do that. Thank you.
Matt?
Thank you, Jennifer, for your question. Ultimately, it's fear. We don't let fear control us. Tony had a pretty bold and honest statement. We don't close our schools. We don't let fear control us. We use our common sense. We use smarts. I mean, if you're sick, stay home. You know, like, we can do this together. Yes, it takes a little bit of sacrifice, but we keep our schools open. The kids, our future, our community needs to know that something's stable. That's what I knew when I was a kid, that I could go to school. I could go to school every day, and I could have the relationships with my teachers and my coaches and my mentors. We all need that. Thank you.
Meredith?
Yeah, I'm proud to say that our schools have been open since January 2021 without fail. And not every school in this area can say that. We took mitigation very seriously. We also took the health and safety of our students very seriously. When we're serving over 4,000 students and oftentimes 25 to 30 kids in a classroom, it's not easy to space out. It is not easy to be able to control viruses. But I am very proud of the fact that we have been in person. And so with that being over a year long in person, I'm not quite sure where that anxiety or threat of closure is again, particularly since the numbers are down and there's nothing more on the horizon.
Matt?
Thank you for that question, Jennifer. I appreciate it. And it is a simple no. If you vote for 2 Matts and a Tony, it's not going to get closed anymore. We are not going to shut down public input in person. None of these things are going to happen, and it is based off of fear. There are people out there that need to wear masks and things like that, and that is absolutely okay. I teach my daughter to respect everybody, and I have given her explicit instructions. You do not, I don't care. And if you hear any other students making fun of anybody for wearing a mask, you step up for them, because that is their right. It's also my right to not want the mandate as well. So to address that anxiety, yeah, my daughter, when it was shut down, that was tearing her apart, not being able to see her friends. And it was a breath of fresh air to have them go back eventually, but that'll never happen again.
Okay, next question.
Ann Jansen. I am the mother of 2 daughters in the MPSD. Representation is important. What are you going to do to ensure that our daughters continue to see women represented in the rooms where decisions are made? Thank you.
Lisa, we'll start with you.
Sure, I think equality is very important. It's a human right to have equality, and I definitely would support that. Thank you.
Matt.
And thank you for your question. I agree 100%. We all need to be represented. It doesn't matter our religious convictions or our sexuality or if we're a male or a female. We all have a voice, and I will foster that every single day. Thank you.
Meredith.
Yeah. So with the slate of candidates, Lisa and I are the only women running, and I do believe representation matters. Whether we want to believe it or not, men and women see things differently. They approach things differently, and I think with a nice combination, there's a wealth of discussion that can happen. I do believe that women should be in the room where it happens, to quote Hamilton. It's important to have that lens available.
Okay, Matt.
Yes, I definitely agree with supporting and representing everybody. And I'm doing this as well with a daughter in school. And it's very important for her representation and all of your daughter's representation as well. All of your children's representation. And having the people on the board as well. We also have Kathy Willis, who's not up for reelection. So we're going to have some diversity, and you have 3 men up here that have daughters, for the most part daughters. So we're very aware of that, and it's very important to us.
Tony.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. Great question. I have 4 daughters, so I'm very interested in seeing them get opportunities. That being said, I'm a big believer in, best person for the job. So again, going back to a principles-based approach versus an identity-based approach, happy to, see anyone get an opportunity that deserves it, frankly.
All right, next question.
Hi, Ryan Hansen. We've been talking a lot about numbers tonight, and numbers are important. But as someone who volunteers weekly at my children's elementary school, I know there's a value to getting up close to seeing the work and the fruit of education. And I wonder if you could share an example where you've been able to do that at MPSD.
Matt, you're first.
Phipps. Thank you. No. I've been substituting at Lincoln High School, and on Friday I'll be substituting at Wilson. So I do believe that we need to have a voice in a presence in our district. So that could be the most recent, to be honest with you. I've been a member of this community my whole life, and I youth apprenticeship young men right now for work. I continue to try to mentor as many people as I can. Ultimately, I just try to live by a good example. I try to give people the truth all the time. I try to be honest. I try to live my life to exemplify what I stand for. So how I'm going to continue to do that, I'm going to continue to try to serve this community. And if you elect me, I'm going to serve the community and be the voice that you want. Thank you.
Meredith.
I've had the privilege and honor of not only being a board member, but also being a parent of 2 children in the district. And so therefore I have spent a significant amount of time, whether that was hanging out in a bounce house at Jefferson or schlepping chairs after a band concert at any of the schools. I've led games so that teachers could use the restroom when we went to visit Heritage Hill up in Green Bay. I sit, I do things, whatever is called upon me to do as a parent and as a board member. And frankly, I'm kind of excited because we are just invited to math night at Jefferson here in a couple weeks. And to me, there's nothing greater than sitting next to a kid and letting them whip you in a game related to math. That is my volunteerism. Last night, I went to Art Bash, and if you didn't get to go, you really missed out because it was an amazing evening of getting to know kids in all sorts of arts. Volunteering is where it is at in our district.
Thank you. Matt?
I agree that, well, I agree with her. Volunteering is where it's at. I personally have not had the opportunity to volunteer and help out with MPSD. I do volunteer. I volunteer for my church. And I volunteer for the security team. I cut the grass all summer long. I really do have a good time volunteering in the community. However, I do look forward to volunteering within the school district as well. I am hoping to be able to maybe even coach. So I'm looking forward to it, but I haven't yet. And it is very important, especially for parents to get involved. It's one of our biggest things that we need to overcome is to get more parent involvement.
So I've reached out and tried to get into the schools recently, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to do so. I have nothing I can control really. It's just the superintendent hasn't allowed me to do that. So as far as volunteering, I'm definitely interested in opportunities to do that. I used to play football. You know, I got 4 daughters, so it's kind of hard to watch them play football because they don't, but they're great volleyball players and basketball players. But I would also like to look into opportunities to do that. You know, one of my neighbors plays football for the district, and I've always been a big supporter of his and really all students and children in our community. So definitely open to those opportunities when they come up.
Lisa?
I was at the Lincoln Fine Arts event last night, and I have to say I was very proud of what our Lincoln High School students are doing. They had musical performances. The culinary students cooked hors d'oeuvres and food. They had artwork on display. It was just a wonderful showing of what our high school is doing. It's the good news of what our district is doing. And that is important for board members to go to the schools and see those things. Thank you.
Okay, next question.
Good evening. My name is David Buffard, and I'm a product of this school district in more ways than one. My father taught 7th grade English at Woodrow Wilson for 26 years, and he was a disciplinarian English teacher, and some of us know that better than others. But my question is, a lot of stuff is on numbers, 8%, and we have 46%, and we have all these percentages. I am a god-awful test taker, but I'm pretty smart. So is there another metric?
30 seconds.
Is there another metric you can use to show the growth and all the work that our teachers are doing and are accomplishing so that we can try and tie this whole thing together instead of pulling us apart? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. We're going to begin with Meredith.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I appreciate it. So yeah, we do float a lot of numbers out there because we're a data-driven district, and that's what we do, right? Our children's worth is not measured by an isolated test score. And I want to make that extremely clear that this stuff about 8% in this report card, yes, it is important to be able to do some introspection as a district and determine what we need to improve upon. But the children's success is not based on isolated test scores. I will tell you though, our children are succeeding at very high levels. We have 784, sorry, it's a number, 784 Lincoln school students who are enrolled in either advanced placement coursework or earning college credits while they're in high school or in apprenticeships or in school to work programming. They are learning at high levels and not based on a test score.
That sentence. Hey, Matt.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And it is confusing. I'm actually pretty good at math, but even looking at the DPI website, going through that chart and looking at all those numbers, it is quite the head racket. We definitely could use a little bit more communication in something visual, charts and things like that, that would actually show an increase or a decrease in where we're headed, and also a measurable goal, and put those two together and really get a look at it. That also has to do with the communication between the public and the board, and anything we can do to open that up and get maybe one source of communication to where it's easier for us to communicate back and forth, instead of you just sending something and never receiving anything back. But that's a good question.
Yeah, thanks, David, for that question. That is a good question. You know, as a business owner, I tend to focus on things that I can measure, and I try to avoid things that are more subjective, like feelings. And to be honest with you, I'm just not sure how we could, although I certainly be open to ideas on this, I'm just not sure how we could quantify or measure things outside of the metrics that we have. You know, we could certainly look at things.
Excuse me, he's speaking. It's
Yeah,
his turn.
and I'd certainly be open to that, David. And I guess what I'm getting at is, you know, I tend to stick with things that we can measure, although I'll keep an open mind.
Lisa, it's your turn.
The DPI scores are based on one day out of an entire school year. And I do also want to point out where there's so much emphasis on how low we were this past year. I want to just point out the DPI test assessment began 10 days after the students returned from 9 months of virtual learning. So because of this, the DPI tells you right on the front of the page, use caution when interpreting assessment results. Thank you.
Matt.
David, thank you very much. That means a lot to me for you to ask that question. Ultimately, it's hard to prove, but to be honest with you, real world feedback from our local businesses, how our HRs are handling new employees, how they're performing in this community. I mean, that's the real testament of how we can be prepared for becoming problem solvers and being a community-based education system. The feedback from local businesses, and the secret of it is local businesses want to invest in our schools. They want to promote people to be ready for their career path. And we just need to foster that. We need to build that relationship. When a local business comes in and says, hey, we want to help out this, how are we going to do that? That's what we need to have. We need to have the communication. So the feedback from the business owners of the community and the HRs, depending on what the problems are, I think that's how we can measure it.
Okay, next question.
My name is Donna Furman. If elected, do you plan to give teachers and staff salary increases? And if yes, how exactly do you plan to do that? If your answer is to cut waste from the budget, what empirical data do you have that proves wastefulness? And finally, would you support a referendum given that Manitowoc is one of the most poorly funded districts in the state? Thank you.
Okay, that question goes to Spalding. You go first.
I do believe that we should increase pay for the teachers and the aides. And the reason why I say that is because in order for us to get a full staff and handle discipline issues and everything else, we need to make it a desirable place to work. And that includes pay and benefits. If you're asking how we can cut from the budget to create room, I don't have the budget in front of me, okay? So there's a lot of things that I'm probably not going to have at my grasp to be able to answer those questions, but I do believe they've proved in the past irresponsibility, $42,000 to deroot. That's another thing. What we said earlier. I believe just a month or two ago, they spent $60,000 for another contractor to come in and teach about behavioral issues, which is, I guess, good things, but nobody knows about these because they don't bring them up to you and they don't talk about them first. It's just done away with. So there's room, but to be able to give you specific statistics, I couldn't. Thank you.
Tony?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, I would absolutely advocate for more competitive wages for our great teachers and aides. You know, some of the feedback I get when I go door to door in our community, I ask people, what do you guys like about our schools? You know, the most common response I get to that question is the teachers. So I think it's important that if we want to attract and retain the best, we have to pay competitive wages. As far as, you know, where that would come from, you know, I do believe that there's probably waste in the budget. You know, what empirical evidence do I have for this? Well, just a life experience of not really seeing government run anything efficiently, frankly. So I think that if someone combed through that $88 million a year spend, we could probably find some opportunities to do better than we are. And I think we could probably reallocate some of that existing spend to pay our great teachers and aides more competitive wages and make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success. As far as the referendum, I wouldn't be opposed to this, but I'd need to do more research on it, frankly. I want to make it clear that I'm willing to go to bat for our schools if more money is needed. I'm just not convinced that's the case. Thank you.
Lisa?
Staff is important to us, and yes, we are looking into increases. I'm on the budget committee, and I can tell you that the MPSD is fiscally responsible and doing the best we can with limited resources that are available. Never passing another referendum again would be financially devastating for our school district. It would leave a hole of about $5 million and a lot of budget cuts to be looked at. So referendums are extremely important to this school district and to this community and to our children. Thank you.
To be completely honest, yes, I would like to support our teachers and our aides extremely. I mean, we need to have them on the front line every single day in school for the students, for their best education. So how that'll look out in the future, I would like to look at the numbers exactly. I think pretty much Tony said it perfectly to me. I'd like to analyze it ourselves, and I would like to find where we are wasting money. From my experience, I do know that we do waste money. At the end of the year, they say, if you didn't spend your money, we're gonna lose it. And that mentality's been running quite a long time. So I think that we can reallocate some of our money to foster better pay for our teachers and especially our teachers' aides. Thank you.
Meredith?
I have to apologize. I was a math teacher, so I do like numbers. 72% of our budget is spent on human resources, teachers, aides, support, secretaries, principals, all of that. 72% of the MPSD budget. And so, yes, I do support referendums. I have in the past and I will in the future because I believe that our human resources are our most important aspect of educating our children and conveying that education to them. As far as is not being aware of the budget, there's an annual budget hearing every year that the public is invited to and can review the budget during that public budget hearing. And I would also say in my 3 years on the board, every single expense, every check that is written is approved by the board. And only once in 2019 was one expense pulled out and questioned and denied. So the full board acts as a full board, 7 people approving budgetary expenses every single meeting.
Thank you. Next question.
My name is Laura Doctor. Speaking of transparency and honesty, a lot of people in the community are talking about 2 school board candidates having attended the January 6th insurrection and apparently spinning a false narrative that that insurrection was merely a peaceful protest and exercise of their rights. I think that voters want to count on the honesty and the good intentions of our elected representatives. Therefore, I think that you owe it to us.
Give the question.
You owe it, I am.
Right now.
You owe it to us to be honest about your participation in this dark day in our nation's history. So my question to you is simple. Were you at the January 6th insurrection?
We don't need, all right. Tony, you are first on that question.
Laura, good to finally put a face to the name. Thanks for showing up.
Quiet.
First off, I'm not sure how that's relevant to the school board, but thank you for asking. I'm a big believer in the First Amendment and for people's rights to peaceably petition their government for a redress of grievances. Thank you.
Lisa, quiet. Listen, we are talking about the school board. You asked your question. You heard his answer. Now it's the next person's turn. So, Lisa,
No, I was not in DC on January 6th. I was in my home watching it on live TV, feeling shocked and dismayed over what I was seeing.
Matt.
Honestly, this is the divisiveness that hurts the community. I was not in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, and I will answer that question for you, Lauren. Thank you.
Meredith.
I was actually interviewing a candidate for a position at my workplace, so no, I was not. I did receive phone calls from my children making sure that I was not harmed, and they were scared. But I think what it comes down to is faith in our elections, and I would hope that in this upcoming election that there is faith in our process, our democratic process.
Matt.
No, I was not in Washington, D.C. on January 6th of 2021. However, if you look at my Facebook page, I've been to Washington, D.C. so many times. At my last job, I actually went there to speak with congressmen and senators, several. For 5 years in a row, I did that when I was a member of the Pulp and Paper Workers Resource Council when I worked at a paper mill. I enjoyed it. I love Washington, D.C. Some of the things that I seen that happened, obviously, were not good, but I believe that the FBI already said that it was not an insurrection. So I wasn't there on that date.
Okay, next question.
My name is Forrest LaFave. I have an 8-year-old nephew in the 2nd grade in Manitowoc Public School District. He cannot read, and no one in the school district stepped in to help. My question is in regards to your posters that are hung on in the schools, specifically the We Are the Future posters that are political indoctrinations and are funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. One poster says, "Rise to rewrite the law," in particular. In my perspective, this means our Constitution. I want to know your opinion. Do you condone this poster?
Lisa, you're first.
I haven't seen the poster, so I'm not going to make a comment.
Matt.
Forrest, thank you for your question. Ultimately, I have not seen the poster either, but I will speak about our teachers from my experience at Mineral Elementary and Stengel Elementary. I had great teachers that took me aside and said, "Hey, Matthew, you know, you're kind of falling behind, and we need to get you back in the library, and we need to check out some books, and you need to start reading a little bit more." And that relationship really is kind of what fostered my ability to take it on myself and say, "Hey, you know, I'm getting behind. I need to work on this." And with that teacher that I had at both locations, to be honest with you, they were the ones that pushed me in the right direction to end, ultimately graduate from UW Stout with a technology education degree. So I thank my teachers when I was a student here. So thank you.
Meredith.
Yeah, so it's interesting to me that I struggle with having an 8-year-old who can't read, and I would just strongly encourage you to reach out to that child's teacher, talk with them about reading specialists, and to get the services that child needs. That would be considered equity at this point, getting what the child needs. We just sat here and talked about First Amendment rights, and so while I haven't seen the posters, that you're speaking about, I would argue that we're talking about First Amendment rights.
Yes, I have seen the posters. And I did see the one that you're speaking of, and I do kind of agree with you that it does sound like they're talking about the Constitution. When you say rise to rewrite the law, you are implying that there's something wrong with it, that there's something wrong with our Constitution, or that you are ultimately against what it stands for. I do not believe that we should be teaching children to revolt. In any way. There was another poster as well that said in Spanish, it said nosotros resistimos, which means we resist. It's not a good picture to teach children in that manner. But yes, it is freedom of speech, but that's my opinion. Thank you.
Tony?
Yeah, I'm not sure highly politicized content like that belongs in our schools. You know, it's a fine line, and I really believe we should just focus on the basics. You know, we need to improve our math and reading. So I would focus on that.
Okay, next question.
My name is Mark Mauer. I have a question about rights. We talked about rights earlier, parental rights, the student rights. This has to do with student rights. What would each of the candidates do to protect the rights of students that identify as LGBTQ?
Matt, you're first. Fitz.
Thank you, Mark, for your question. Ultimately, rights, when you have the conversation about rights, you need to have the conversation about responsibility. So we need to hold that true to ourselves, and we need to make sure that we protect everybody's individual rights and uphold our Constitution of the United States. And Matt just referred back to it. We need to not destroy what we already have in place. I believe we have a very, very good document that we should be all representing. We shouldn't be trying to rewrite it. And I will advocate to stand up for the right rule of law, and I will advocate to continue to use what we have in place to protect our individual rights, because I think it's the best that we could ever have, and I'm very thankful for being in this country. So I would protect the rights that we already have and their rights as well, depending on whatever their choices were. Thank you.
Meredith.
I just want to say, you know, our rights in regard to LGBTQIA plus individuals, they are protected. And you're right, they are protected. However, the rights for happiness in high school, the rights for being protected from bullies, those are not things that are necessarily written down in firm documents. And so, yes, I stand as an ally with the community in ensuring that those rights are protected. The right to have and sit in a classroom and not be ridiculed for the person they are. The right to not be told and shouted at down the hall that you stupid gay kid went to prom with your girlfriend. It is unacceptable. Kids have rights too.
Matt.
I believe we already have a non-discrimination policy. It's one of the first things that you see when you go on the MPSD website. I advocate for non-discrimination as well, in any manner. So definitely, I don't think I would change anything, but right now I don't see any issue with that right now. I mean, just like we were saying before, inclusivity, I think that we need to treat everybody as equals, but we also need to start teaching these kids what they have in common, and they wouldn't even look at that. Nobody should be looking at what their sexuality is or what their race is or anything like that. We already have one in place, and I think it's working.
Tony.
Yeah, so I would, again, advocate for a principles-based approach in lieu of an identity-based approach here. I would certainly be against any form of bullying for any student. So if that's happening, we should definitely put an end to that. But again, I feel that, again, grouping students and people, you know, by skin color, sexuality, gender, if I get elected to this board, I'm going to strongly advocate to move in the other direction and look at people as individuals, judge them by the content of their character, and interact with them accordingly. We should love and respect all our students in our community.
Lisa.
I do stand with the LGBTQ community, And as a school board member, I will support them and continue to support them. Thank you.
Okay, one last question. It is now getting to be 8:20, so, and they have to have their closing argument. So one last question. That's it. Yeah, make it 30 seconds long.
Hey, I'm Anna Kane, and I'm here to ask a question on behalf of a friend of mine who's a teacher in the MPSD. She asks, how do the candidates want to be seen by teachers and staff in the district who may not feel supported by the board?
Okay, Meredith, you're next to answer that first.
Yeah, as an educational administrator, I understand that teachers and administration don't always see eye to eye. And that doesn't diminish the respect or the input that teachers should have and have the right to have. We're never going to all think in a common direction, but there is room for all of us to grow, and I would hope that they would feel comfortable. I respond to teachers all the time when they email me, even if we disagree about something. I want to hear their opinions. I want to be able to work towards a common understanding, a common solution. But as a board member, I am one of 7, and so I can bring those concerns forward, but we act as a board.
Thank you, Matt.
This is the communication that we're talking about. I think we should have a certain set way that we do communicate. I can tell you right now, I have as well spoken with other teachers that have emailed, and parents, by the way, that have emailed people on the board, and they've gotten responses from very little. I believe they had said that Colin responded once. So I think there's a lack there, or they're missing it. I understand everybody's busy. But if you elect me, I do think that we need to change the way that we communicate, especially even with the teachers. This whole thing that we're doing right now is about students and who's teaching our students. It's not the board, it's not the administrators, it's the teachers. And they are very important, and we need to hear what they have to say, and we need to hear what their concerns are, and we need to help them out in any way that we can. So definitely, please come and ask the questions. I want to hear them.
Okay, Tony.
Yeah, I guess, I would first off thank all the teachers in our community. As I mentioned earlier, one of the most common answers to the question when I ask, what do you like about our schools? It's, hands down, it's the teachers is the top answer. So, and I remember as a young child myself, going to public school, K through 12, and then off to the university, teachers were some of the most influential figures in my life, looking back at it. You guys really all play a vital role in this community. And I just want you to know that if I get elected on this board, I will advocate strongly for you to treat you guys fairly and give you the tools and resources that you need to do your jobs effectively. Thank you for your service to our community.
Lisa.
I do appreciate our staff, our teachers, our administrators, and I've always supported our staff. They can feel comfortable coming to me, and they do come to me, talk to me, email me, call me. I've always responded to them in a positive way. And I would like to thank them for their service, both present and past. Thank you.
Matt.
Thank you, Anna, for your question. Ultimately, it's the relationship you have with the teachers that actually get to have the relationship with the students. So how I can foster that, I can be accessible, I can be open, I can coordinate, I can be honest. And ultimately, I don't want to have a disconnect between the board and the teachers. I don't want competition between the administrators and the teachers. I think that has been too long that we've been putting up walls between the teachers and the administrators. I want to foster growth that we can break down those walls so that we can work for a common goal, because ultimately it's the success of the child that becomes a member of our community. So that's what I'll do. Thank you.
One else.
So you guys are talking about adversity and then introspect, and as well as how to gauge or measure intellect. And there's emotional intellect in a way of dealing or communicating with each other in a well situation. What would you guys do if you guys were elected and some of you agree differently or have different opinions? How would you guys work together
Okay, and we will start with Matthew Spalding. And this is it, guys.
Thank you for that question, Ashley. I appreciate it. And I do believe that that's one of the things that we need to break down. That's a wall that we need to break down, is we need to work together with the superintendent and with all of the rest of the board members. The one thing that I've noticed going to the meetings for the last year or so is that I feel that everything that comes up from like through Colin and Stacy, if it's a good idea for the students, just like with the masks, when they brought it up last time to get rid of it because the stats were going down, it was voted down. And then a couple days later, it was just turned over and they allowed it anyway by the superintendent. It seems to be like no matter what they say, the other ones will vote it down. I think that between Colin and Stacy, if it's for the good of the students, they always seem to go along and vote with it. We need to work together. And that is a big proponent of getting things done. So yes, I am all for it. We need to just come together as one and work for the students.
Tony?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Ashley. You know, one of my strengths, frankly, is that I work well with others. And even when I disagree with people, I always operate with a level of mutual respect. And I think one of the things, particularly looking at a board, you know, I think it's good to have some differences of thought on there, as long as we're all aligned on what's the best for our students and community, right? What's best for the kids. That's really what it's all about. So I feel that, you know, just looking back at my life experience, you know, being involved in sports and academics, and then, you know, being a business owner, I have a proven track record of working with people that may not agree with me on everything. And I think I could bring that to the board and be highly effective working with everyone, regardless of what it looks like after the election.
Okay, Lisa.
It is going to be extremely difficult. We have a very divided community. Just look at the disruptions and outbursts at our school board meetings the last 9 months. This is not normal behavior. And I think a lot of you know that. It's over the top behavior. And it is going to be extremely difficult moving forward from this point.
I actually disagree with that, but that's okay. I mean, ultimately, I think if we're united in understanding what's really important, our children. So it shouldn't matter if we have different opinions, as long as our children are at the center. So I'm a lifelong learner. I know I'm wrong. I've already admitted that once tonight. I probably will admit it again. But ultimately, whoever has the best idea to solve a problem for our children to be successful in this community, I will agree with. Doesn't matter who it comes from. So that's what you'll get if you vote for me. Thank you.
Meredith.
I have to say, it hasn't been easy the last year. And I'm the first to admit I get a little feisty sometimes at the boardroom table. But it's because I have a stake in the game. I have a child in the district who I have a grave concern for. And honestly, I really appreciate Mr. Spalding bringing that forward, that he also has a kid in the district. And that really makes a difference in the heart and the lens that you look at things through. I would say this, though, that the board does have an ethics policy, and that ethics policy has been violated time and time again over the past year, which has made it very difficult when the ground rules are not always being adhered to. So I would hope, starting off a new year with a new board, that we would review those ground rules, review the ethics policy, and discuss potentially some consequences when that's not followed.
Okay. All right, at this time, the candidates are going to set up their closing statements. They will have a minute and a half, and Tony will begin with you.
Thank you. So one of the things that I've heard a few times tonight, you know, it seems like some keep referring to the board meetings, and I've been going since August. I've been to all the ones with public input. You know, I hear some comments about disruptions, outbursts, and I would just encourage everyone involved to really try to understand why. You know, when I see people at these meetings I don't see disruptions or outbursts. I see frustrated parents. Honestly, that's why I started going to the meetings to begin with. I was frustrated. I saw what was happening to our kids in the schools. I saw a lot of them, including my niece, didn't want to wear a mask, and she had to go to school every day and wear it. And I'm cool if you want to wear one, but I just think that people should be able to choose for themselves. And one thing that I could promise you I will bring as a member of this board if I am elected, I will listen. If you're upset with me, I'll listen to you. I'll reply to your email. I'll get back to you and I'll be polite and I'll be respectful. I'll hear you out. I'm willing to meet people and I want to understand your positions and your views. But ultimately, I'm going to look at what's best for our kids and I'm going to advocate for that, all while also advocating for individual liberty and freedom. In closing, I feel that looking at a lot of the issues that we have.
You're done.
Oh, all right.
Your
thanks.
stop sign is there. That's it.
Thank you.
Lisa.
For those of you that don't know this, members of MPSD board are non-paid volunteers. I'm doing this because I care about public schools and the well-being of our community and our children. The 3 incumbents stayed on the school board during difficult times, and we made tough decisions. Whether they were popular or not, we made the tough decisions. The 3 incumbents have the experience and integrity to get the job done. We would be honored to have your vote on April 5th. Thank you very much.
All right, Matt.
Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for spending their time away from their families tonight to come here. Ultimately, if you vote for me, I will serve the community. I will be the voice for the parents. I will make sure that I put children first. And I will make sure that our future is with our children because that's all we have is our children. We need to teach our children how to take up the responsibility of the last generation of workers and community members to be productive members of this community. Ultimately, that's what I want. I have 3 young children of my own. I'm very proud to be a father, and it changes a lot when you become a father. You understand not just being a teacher, but you understand that that's your own child. And I want to make sure that I have the same opportunities given to my children that I had when I was here. Thank you.
Meredith.
The board has done some of the most difficult work in the recent history of a school board over the past 3 years. And it continues to dig in and face a variety of issues in a constructive manner. A board member's role, though, is to advocate and support the district, holding accountability for the work that's done. I believe during my tenure, I have conducted that role well, and I've earned the community's vote. I'm a lifelong educator who believes in public education and its mission to support all students in their academic, social, and emotional well-being and growth. Those who come to school hungry, those who need an extra boost in reading and math, those who need a more academic challenge, and those who require unique services. They all deserve our unbiased care and respect. And I know that our children's worth and success is based on holistic learning experiences and not on a one-day test score. I know we have work to do to continue to keep our children and our teachers and our staff safe in an ever-changing environment. I believe our children are learning at high levels and are laying the foundation of success after graduation. And when I say our children, I mean my child. I mean Matt's child. And I can't say that for everybody up here on this panel tonight. I believe in public education. I know I have the integrity, the honesty, and the experience needed to continue this job. And I would ask for your vote on April 5th.
Matt.
Thank you so much for coming again. And if you vote for myself and Matthew and Tony as well, the one thing that you can be sure of is that we will hold ourselves accountable to you, as we will expect it for you to hold us accountable. And it's something that's very important to me, and I do care about my children, and I care about the children of the schools. And it's just, as an elected official, it is my job to be held accountable to you. okay? I can't stop public input or anything like that just because I feel like they're obviously upset, or if I feel like they're getting aggressive, in my opinion. That's what being a public official is. I mean, that's what being an elected person is. These people elected you and they want to tell you their story. Now, I understand they gave the opportunity for everybody to call in or whatever, and you've seen how that went. We had one person call in, and it was Tony, and it was a real hassle. So, and another thing I can say really quickly is that I do hear a lot about, in response to the problems, is that we need to throw more money at the child or at the per pupil. Everybody refers to the DPI, but that's not always the answer. Okay, we've got other school districts out there that don't spend as much money per pupil, and they're doing better than us as well. So we'll definitely hold ourselves accountable. We'll hold the superintendent accountable, and we'll start setting some goals. And we're looking forward to answering any questions as well throughout the year. Thank you.
Okay. All right, that concludes this evening. I thank all of you for coming, for paying attention, for listening to the candidates. Get out there and vote. That's the best.